Good morning and welcome to our Rookies in Retirement YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be math for quail, and this will take you through all the formulas that you'll need to figure out how much room a quail needs, whether it's just hatched or if it's in the brooder, grow out pen, or if it's in a breeder cage. We're also going to go through the number of days that it takes to hatch them out. We use a couple of different incubators, and I'll get to that later. But hopefully, this will be everything that you need to decide how much room that you have or you need for your quail. So let's start off with eggs. Day one, if you're going to put your eggs into your incubator, and again, we use two separate incubators. The reason we do that is when we get to day 15, we swap them out. We take them out of the egg turner and we put them in the other incubator that does not have an egg turner. And the reason for that is it's just a little easier to just swap them into another one rather than take them all out, take the egg turner out, put them back in. And plus it has just one incubator getting dirty. When they hatch out, they can be a little messy. So anyway, day one, you put the eggs into incubator number one with the egg turner. Temperature setting for us is 100.5, so we're looking for about 100 degrees, and our humidity goal is between 40 and 50%. After on day 14, and that might actually be day 15. No, I'm sorry, day 14. Start incubator number two without the egg turner, and fill the trays with 100-degree water. That helps you. You don't have to heat that cold water up with your incubator. It can start off that way. Temperature setting again about 100.5 for us, and the humidity goal is 65 to 70%. So here are our incubators, both with forced air heat. The one on the left is the Farm Innovators, and you can see it has the egg turner in it. The one on the right is a Little Giant, and there's no reason why we have either one of them. It's just what was available that worked for us. And so again, we start off with the egg turner. After a couple of weeks, we put them in the one without the egg turner. Okay, so here's our Farm Innovators with the egg turner. And here's incubator number two. It's a Little Giant, does not have an egg turner. So I also want to point out that there's a little blue piece of masking tape with the day number and the date. And I really didn't think that that was going to be necessary. I've heard other people talk about doing that. And I didn't think I was going to need it, but I did it anyway. And it turns out that it's a really good idea. So for this one, day 18 was January 1st. And that was the day that you could really expect to see your birds hatching out. They can come as early as day 16, but usually day 18 you'll get a couple, and then the majority of them will come on day 19, and then day 20 and 21 you'll have some stragglers as well. So back on our little chart here, day 19 is going to be set up your brooder, and you want to start setting that up to a temperature of about 95 degrees. Day 20, you're going to start seeing a lot of your birds are hatched, they're dry, they're starting to really crawl around in your incubator, and you need to get them out. But you only want to move your dry birds to the brooder. I have a little note here: careful not to cool the eggs and shrink wrap the unhatched birds. That's something you really have to be careful of. If you take your birds out too soon, there could be some birds that have broken through the shell, and if you let those eggs get too cold, that they could shrink wrap themselves right into the egg, and they won't survive. So you want to make sure that when you do this, you You just lift up the top of the incubator, grab out the dry birds quickly. You don't want to just take the whole top off, let all that heat escape, and then worry about shrink wrapping your birds. So here's a picture of one of our brooders. This is actually the bigger of the of three that we have. And I took this picture from our Instagram page. You can see the rookies in retirement on top. And yes, we are in the Finger Lakes region of Western New York. We're probably closest to Rochester, south of that. So anyway, the brooder, and yes, that is a security camera looking at the birds. If you look at the right side of that. And here I've created a cut sheet, I guess is what you would call it. So this is a 4x8 sheet of shower panel. That's what I found worked really well. And if you cut it to these dimensions, and you'll be able to make the brooder that you saw on the previous page. And I'll make a little video on that later if you guys want. So back to our list. At day 40, you can move your birds out to the grow-out pen, and they'll be about 3 weeks old. Here in the northern climate that we have, if it's really cold out, wintertime, you want to wait a few more days, give them another week to 10 days if you're going to move them to an outdoor pen. What we found is the feed that we use is wild game bird, or you can use turkey feed. It's a crumble. And when the birds are really small, they'll go through about a third of an ounce of feed per bird per day. When they get to be an adult, they'll go through about an ounce. We always just gave them a little bit more just to make sure they had what they needed. We just keep the feeder full. And but that's about what they'll eat. At day 58, we've seen hens begin to lay eggs that early. And on roughly day 67, you can call your flock if you're going to take them out and move them into breeder pens, or if you're going to, I like to call it, send them to freezer camp. Other people have used that phrase as well. I kind of like that. So they'll be about 46 to 49 days old at that point. Here's a picture of our grow out pen. It's basically 8 feet long and 30 inches deep, and it's about 6 feet high. And it's sitting on a couple of 2x4s, and you'll see why on the next slide. But we had the breeder pen and the grow out pen in the same area. So if you look at this, the right side, there's 2 doors on the front. The one on the right is for the enclosed area, and this is to keep them out of the wind, keep them out of the really bad weather. And inside there's about an inch or 2 of sand, and that's where they like laying their eggs. If you leave them in here long enough, that's where you'll find them. The left side of the pen is where we keep the feed and the water, and it has a wire floor as well. Breeder cages. Like I said before, the breeder cages and the grow out pen are on the same pressure treated 2x4s just to keep the bottoms from rotting. And you can also see that there's some lights on there. That's to simulate daytime, so that they'll come on early in the morning and give your birds the daylight or simulated daylight that they need to keep their egg production up. You'll also see on each one of them there's some plastic tubs, and that basically just catches all the manure that comes through their wire cage. We would keep some pine shavings in there for them, and it was a nice way to just be able to take all of that and put it in the compost pile. Breeder. All right, so how much room do they need? And you'll have to pardon the chicken scratch for handwriting, but I just took pictures of some notes that I kept while I was doing this. The breeder It's one bird per square foot. And now I put 5 hens to 1 rooster. So there's 6 birds altogether. That's what they need for when they're an adult. They need a square foot per bird minimum. The grow out pen, you can put 3 to 4 birds per square foot because they're not quite an adult yet. And about the time that they're going to start needing that kind of room, you're going to call them anyway. So give your quail an inside area, stay out of the wind, as well as an outside area. We talked about that. Talked about the sand on the floor as well. But the reason I took this slide is you can see they have a little area to walk in and out of the enclosed area. The outside area, they're just on the wire. A little Tupperware type feeder that you can go on just about any YouTube channel that talks about quail and they'll tell you how to build those. And a 1 quart water. Now notice that they don't have a whole lot of room. I think it was only like 12 or 13 inches of room that I gave them. They don't need a lot of headroom, so to speak, because they're a little flighty, they're jumpy, and if you give them enough room as they jump, they could come up and do some damage to themselves when they hit their head on the top. So if you don't give them a lot of head space, they can't really come up to speed, I guess is the best way to put it. But there's less chance of them harming themselves if they don't have a lot of room to jump. So let's talk a little bit about their lifespan, so to speak. Put them in the incubator, the first incubator, and that's for days 1 through 15. So depending on how you want to count it, I count the first day that I put them in there as day 1. A calendar doesn't have a 0 on it. It starts with January 1st, so that's just what makes sense for me. You guys can do it any way you want. But I look at it as days 1 through 15. They're in the first incubator. On day 15, I put them into the second incubator. Hatching will begin on usually days 18 to 21. Can be as early as day 16, but the bulk of your birds are going to hatch on day 19. You can expect a 70% hatch rate. That's if you have the birds yourself hatching eggs or laying eggs. If you ship eggs from a supplier, you can expect about a 50% hatch rate. That's just the way it is. Expect a 5% loss between hatching and 8 weeks. Your brooder time is day 2 or 3 to week 4, and then you have to adjust for the temperature. You want to every day bring that temperature down just a little bit, acclimate them to the cooler temperature. At your grow out pen, you're going to be 4 weeks old to 8 weeks old, and about 8 weeks you want to separate the hens and roosters. Sometimes you want to do that a little bit earlier. If you have roosters that are crowing at 6 weeks, 7 weeks, then you know it's time to get them out of there. So how many quail can a breeding set produce? So if you take 6 hens and 1 rooster, I wouldn't recommend putting any more than that in with a rooster. You can go anywhere from 4 to 6. Again, we do 5. But at 6 hens per 1 rooster, you can expect 4 eggs a day, roughly 28 eggs per week. At a 70% hatch rate, you're going to be 19 to 20 chicks. 5% loss, so you're going to safely have 18. 6 batches a year, 8 weeks to raise, 108 birds per year. That's per mating set, breeding set. And you can expect between 90 and 95 birds per year if you only have 5 hens per rooster like we do. So I think that'll be enough for this first video. We'll follow up with a second video on scaling it up to a business. But right now I think that'll give you enough information to get you started. So thank you for stopping by Grandpa's Barn and our Rookies in Retirement YouTube channel. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Give us a like, subscribe if you'd like, and hopefully we'll see you next time. So I think that'll